Hi everyone, welcome to CGI's Career Labs. My name is Anthea Maxwell. I'm responsible for talent acquisition here in Western Canada specifically, but support a lot of our business units right across Canada. I've been working in IT for about IT recruitment for about 15 years now. I've been working with CGI for the last 3.5. Really excited to be part of this initiative. This is our third Career Lab so far. Opportunity to connect with candidates who are looking for opportunities and give you some insights into and what recruiters are expecting when you first start interviewing with CGI, and generally as well, actually. So without further ado, if you have any questions, please pop them in our chat. We'll get to them towards the end of the presentation. For now, I will jump right in and we will get started, and I'll answer your questions verbally at the end of the presentation. Great. Sorry, bear with me 2 seconds. Great. So, what are recruiters looking for? I know it's a lot when you're going through the interview process. What does this interview mean? What are they looking for? How can I stand out from the rest? So hopefully this will be an informative session where you really learn a little bit more about what recruiters such as myself are looking for. So really, very, very important right off the bat when you've been invited to an interview, make sure you have the right intel. So this means, what are the types of interviews that you might be asked to participate in. So initially, you'll have a pre-screen with a recruiter. This is usually on the phone or over a chat service like Teams. Usually 20 to 30 minutes. This is an opportunity for the recruiters to learn a little bit more about you, what your motivations are, what your career aspirations are, maybe a brief overview of your technical skills and your background, and certainly what your compensation expectations are. Then that will follow by a technical interview where there could be maybe a coding challenge or an online platform, skills test like a Java skills test, and certainly a verbal sort of interview, understanding a little bit more about the technical skills that you have listed on your resume. And then that will culminate in a final interview with a hiring manager. Here at CGI, that's usually a director who's responsible for that account. Research about the company, that is so important. So often I meet with candidates and I ask them, why CGI, or what makes CGI an employer of choice for you? And sometimes they haven't even, they don't know much about CGI at all. So there's lots of information out there, and certainly not just specifically about CGI, but any company you're interviewing with, make sure you become really, really well prepared. This is not necessarily knowing, when the company was founded or, how many people are in the company and that kind of thing, but really understanding, what they're working on, what their objectives are. And you can find this information. Really important that you have a good understanding of the organization and why you want to work there and how it's a great fit for your career aspirations, as well as a good fit for, what you're looking for. And also certainly researching about the role. Very, very important that, you read the job description, you understand exactly what the role entails, really a call and answer. So you've got your resume and you've got the job description. Really being able to, in an interview setting, say, okay, you've listed you're looking for somebody who's got experience with the software development lifecycle or CI/CD pipelines or something like that, making sure that you sort of call and answer. Very, very important that you understand the sort of the tasks and the skills and have a really good understanding of what the role entails. Sorry. And so what are we doing for, how do you prepare for these interviews? What are some, frequently asked questions that you can prepare for? Really, really important that this preparation phase that goes through. So understand, what are your skills? What are your strengths? What are your motivations? What are the values that are important to you? And what drives you in your day-to-day in your career? There are different types of questions that are often asked, behavioral questions, where that might be something like, tell me about a time in a previous job when you had a difficult manager, or maybe you had a difficult team member, or maybe you didn't meet a project deadline. Those are those types of questions. Or something more situational, what would you do if? And the interview will sort of set up a scenario and you kind of draw back on your experience and be able to answer that question based on the experiences that you've also had. So these are some pretty standard interview type questions. I'm very happy to share with you. I've collated over the years a lot of behavioral questions. So happy to share that list of questions to help you prepare with anyone who's on this call. Also really important, know your resume extensively. So, the joy of some of the bonuses of being in this virtual world, you can have your resume right next to you as a little cheat sheet. The more experience you have, obviously it's harder to remember what you were doing 5 years ago and 10 years ago. So really important that you have a mind to that. You really understand your career, your progression, not getting mixed up. So making sure that you have a really, really solid, and you've practiced and you know what your career trajectory looks like. Also very important to sort of analyze your experience and how it fits with the requirements of the role. And that's going back to what we just discussed, that that call and answer. So making sure you really, really prepare. Okay, great. They're looking for this skill set, XYZ skill set. I have done that, and this is how I've done it, and this is how I can provide those examples. So preparation is absolutely key and very, very important. Share your achievements. This is really important. I think that often interviewers are, recruiters will talk to candidates and we're looking at their resume, we're asking them questions, but then, some gems come out of that. So maybe you've won an award, or maybe you completed a project before deadline, or, so many infinite possibilities of how you can really sort of showcase your achievements. What were some challenges you've had? How did you overcome them? What was your personal input to the team? What were some positive results? So you can't always fit all of that in your resume, and this is a great time for you to let your interviewer know about why you're the greatest person for this position. Outlining your skills. This is really important as well. So obviously, here at CGI, we focus on mostly technical roles, but not entirely. It's really important that when you talk about the skill set that you have listed on your resume, that you can really show that you have that experience. Often, as recruiters will encounter a candidate who, will speak to a candidate who might not have the skills, or may have sort of heard about a technology, or maybe dabbled a little bit, but don't really have any practical knowledge. Leave that off your resume. Really focus on the skills that you do have, that you excel in, and that you can speak to. And also, prove what you say. So when you're talking about what your accomplishments have been, what you've done, what your successes have been, always backing up with examples. So, answering the questions and being straight and to the point. This is really important. I know that when I, as a recruiter, I have a list of questions that I prepared that I'm asking candidates. When I ask a question, or when any of us ask a question, make sure that you answer that question specifically. It's really important. I know we all get excited and you want to tell them all the great things you've done, but make sure that you're answering the specific question. Try not to go on too many tangents. Stay on point. If there's something later that you want to add that maybe didn't answer that specific question, we can certainly get to that a little bit later. But make sure that you stay focused. Maybe if you don't understand the question, no harm in saying, "Can you please repeat that?" Or take a sip of your water, and it gives you a moment to pause and think about what you're going to say next. Always using positive wording, very, very important. You know what? You might have had a terrible experience in your last role. It happens. But staying as positive as you can. You never want to bash your previous employer or your previous, team members. Really important to stay positive. And the reason for that is, we're speaking to you as if you're going to be joining our organization, and we want to make sure that you're bringing in your best foot forward, and that you've got, there's always a result. There's always a positive result to anything. Asking questions. Again, this one is so important. Whenever I end an interview, I always say, so, any questions for me? Often I get responses, you know what, I think you've covered everything. For me, that's often a showstopper, sorry. The reason why is there's always a question to ask, right? So I may have already covered, the requirements of the role. We've talked about our culture and fit and all that good stuff. But it's really, really important that you have a question. And the reason for that is it makes sure that you're engaged in you can see yourself working there. You can see yourself joining that team. You can see yourself joining that organization. So it could be something fun, maybe learning a little bit more about the people that you're going to be working with. What do you like working about CGI? Or, what are the opportunities for training and development? Or what are your CSR initiatives? It's got to be something that's genuine and that relates to what's important to you as a candidate, but definitely always have a question prepared, or have 10 prepared in case the recruiter's already answered your questions. You still have a couple more to offer. It just shows your level of engagement. Being confident in being yourself, always so important. Obviously, confidence, you're going to be nervous and all that good stuff, but showing your confidence, you can see yourself in this role. And being yourself is really important as well. If you're a bit of a jokester and you like to have fun, show that, because that's the team that you're going to be joining, spending a lot of your time with. Really, really important that you show your sort of true, genuine self. And in fact, it's really important that you carry that throughout your career. And so, career path, how are we, you explain your progression. Obviously, we all like to continue to progress our careers and have a really clear sort of path that we follow. But sometimes, there's some bumps in the road. This is important that you're honest. You may have had a short duration at a previous role. That's not a showstopper. Just be honest and straightforward. You know what? Maybe you left. Maybe you were terminated. Who knows? But it's really, really important that you're as honest and transparent as you can possibly be. The short presentation, everybody comes in and you want to sort of say, this is it. You put some thought into it. This is where I want to take my career. This is what motivates me. Have that really, really clear in your mind before you, join that interview. It's so important that you are not just sort of, reading your resume and, I did this and I did that as the resume is sitting next to you. Really important that you've thought about this, you practice. This is your pitch. This is who I am. I'm a DevOps engineer. I want to move into a team lead role. I want to join an organization that has great culture and that opportunity for career progression that I'm looking for. So make sure you've prepared that as well. You know what? Motivation is actually the first question that I ask in a pre-screen call. What's your motivation? Why did you apply to this position? That is a question that I encourage everybody to have very well prepared. It could mean so many different things, but the interviewer is able to glean from that answer what you're looking for and maybe help. And maybe this isn't the right role based on some of those motivating factors, but then, how can we help you achieve that if there's a good fit there? Understanding the role, again, going back to what we chatted about a little bit earlier, making sure that you've got that job description down pat and that every line of that job description you're able to demonstrate in your previous experience or on your resume exactly how you have in your previous experience excelled in that similar role. As far as your technical expertise, this is really important as well. Going back to what I said earlier, making sure that you actually have worked with the technologies that you have listed on your resume. So very important. You can certainly during an interview process say, you know what, I don't have Azure on there, but I'm very interested in learning more about Microsoft Azure. That's something you should say. You can say in an interview scenario. But putting Azure on a resume because you've read about it a couple of times, you want to avoid that because you're going to get caught up and you're going to be in a situation where you're not going to be able to answer honestly about Azure because you've never actually worked with it, right? Professional skills, be confident in your skills, but do not boast. And this one's important too. Often it's a candidate will want to say, I've done this, I've done that, I've done everything, I can do everything. Well, we all know it takes a team, right? And here at CGI and in most organizations, our team is that's our goal. That's our golden spot. So very, very important that you are confident in what you've done. You're confident in the successes you've had in your previous roles without being boastful, because we all know that we can't succeed without a great team. And your personal skills and strengths, and this is really important too. These are, how have you how have you helped motivate others, or how have you acted as some sort of mentor, or what kind of how does your personality fit into your career and your team, and how does that make you a better fit for the role, depending on what the role is. And teamwork, here at CGI and most organizations, depending on what kind of company, but we all work in a client-facing capacity, so having those skills, those soft skills, and being able to be a supportive part of that team, very, very important. And again, provide those examples, because you will get the hints to the questions you're going to be asked during an interview from that job description. And that's it. So thank you so much for everybody. Can't wait to get into the questions. We have a bunch of, we have several career labs coming up. We've already had a couple, and they'll be live on our website, I believe, shortly. The last two one was all about getting ready for a job interview, and then there was a do's and don'ts for video interviews. Upcoming, I believe next week, we have an overview of our new grad program. The following week, a presentation about growing with CGI, followed by a networking presentation, and then a presentation titled Your Career Path with CGI, all part of our Career Lab presentations. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'm going to jump over to the chat. And just, my name again is Anthea Maxwell. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, again, if you would like that list of behavioral questions that I mentioned earlier, very happy to share that with you. And I'm going to jump over to the questions. Thank you. Okay. All right. So here we are. Okay, great. So first question is, what are the current expectations and requirements in COVID situation to get through the interview? So if I understand that, I mean, obviously everything's remote at this point. And so the expectations and requirements, I mean, a job description will let you know, hopefully, that the role, I mean, most roles are remote right now, but if there's an expectation, let's say, for the role to be located in an office in, let's say, Toronto, making sure that that you're able to relocate to Toronto. So right now, the expectation is everybody's working remotely, but for many of our roles, once we do go back to an in-office situation, whenever that is, that role will be located in one of CGI's offices in one of our cities. I hope that answered the question. How to stand out amongst the professionals to get immediate hired? Yeah, you know what? I think what you're doing right now is really important, right? Attending what you can. There's going to be that session on networking. I'm a big believer in networking. I think it's really important. Take advantage of everything that's out there. So sessions like this, taking advantage of that. Really, really important that you continue to network. Find somebody on LinkedIn who has the job that you want at the organization that you want. Let's take advantage of this virtual world where, asking somebody to commit time to meet you for a coffee is much more appealing now when it's, can we have a 10-minute conversation, right? So there's a lot of senior professionals out there who would be very happy to take that call and maybe happily connect you to the right people to help you with your career search. Okay, great. So next question is, candidates with overseas experience and gap in their experience, what's the best way to get a foot in the door? Again, I think this backs, overseas experience, really, really valuable. Certainly here at CGI, and I know most organizations, we live in a global world, so we value that overseas experience. What I would say is that sometimes, a role that is very similar to a role here might be titled something differently. So I would encourage you, as you are preparing your resume, to make sure that you're using the language that's used in the country where you're applying for positions, right? So that's really, really important, because someone might read your resume and say, oh, I'm looking for a systems analyst. I don't see that here. Well, it could, you might have put consultant on your resume. Again, it's really, really important that you adapt your resume's language to fit the requirements for the role in the country that you're applying to. And certainly going back to what I said earlier, I think networking, attending sessions like this, Really, really important. So CGI recruits internationally, and we see gaps for international and local talent. Is hand gesture necessary since we are seen on a screen? I'm not sure that I understand that question. Is hand gesture necessary since we are seen on the screen? Sorry, I'll come back to that one later. I'm not sure that I understand. What are some examples of questions that you have received during interviews that have really stood out to you? Oh, that's a really good question. So I think the questions that really get a response that I think is can really tell a lot about a person, and this is a great question. I was once asked a question is, what was your experience like in high school? And I thought, what an arbitrary question. I haven't been in high school for a long time. This is probably about 5 years ago. And I ended up working with that organization. And it's actually a really telling question because it allows somebody to see, see objectively what their experience was and also how they interacted. Were they on teams? Were they outgoing? Did they have a large group of friends? Do you know what I mean? Like, were they really cliquey? So I find it's a really, really telling question. I started working with that organization, started employing the question myself, and I found it really, really effective. So that's a cool question. Thank you. Good. Oh, good. Here's a question. Oh, Irina's already answered that one. If the job asks for minimum 5 years of experience, but I have less than 1 year of experience, should I still apply? You know what? That's a question that I get very regularly. I think that usually when somebody is crafting a job description, the 5 years or whatever the number of years is usually put there to demonstrate the level of career progression, right? And so if you feel that in your 1 year of experience and you've read that job description and you've done that call and answer that we talked about earlier, and you really see a very strong match, absolutely apply. But often that years of experience is there to show that they're not looking for somebody who's sort of 1 year out of graduating, who's a little bit further along, and that could be for multiple different reasons. It could be the projects with their clients that state that somebody needs to have that number of years of experience. I personally think there's no harm in applying, but probably focusing more on the roles where you've got that experience that they're looking for. But if you feel that your career has progressed in those 5 years, give it a shot. And if there are the constraints that maybe the project work that we're working on requires that our members have that 5 years of experience, then it's not going to work, and that's something your recruiter will let you know, or will not proceed to the next round. Any tips for someone who gets past the initial resume screen but then fails the first interview? Yeah, so I think it's really important that you make your best efforts to find out why. Send your sorry, I just saw my name. Send your recruiter a note. Thanks. I'm sorry it didn't work out. Can you give me some insight into why? And we're happy to provide as much insight as we can. And it might just be a situation of somebody just had more years of experience in that particular skill set, or it's not going to be something personal. There's just so many other factors involved. But looking for that. Hey guys, I lost you for a minute. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Just pause for some reason. Thank you. My question is, Right. Okay. This is a good question. So thank you for doing. My question is it rude to ask a referral reference from recruiter or someone inside the company through LinkedIn? That is a really good question. We love referrals here at CGI. Absolutely. I think that just straight out asking somebody for a referral that you don't have a relationship with, I don't think it's rude. I just don't think it's effective because they don't know you, right? So a different approach to that would be sort of building that relationship as we discussed earlier, you know, connecting with someone on LinkedIn. Wow, looks like you have a really cool career there at CGI. Would you mind if I gave you a quick call? You're starting to build that relationship. Our members here at CGI, we really promote referrals here at CGI. So, once they've built that relationship with you, they would be able to list you as a referral and give you a ringing endorsement that will help kind of bring you up to the top in the screening process. So straight out asking, yeah, I would avoid that, but certainly building a relationship and then asking, very, very, very encouraged and a great way to go. Great. How can we give examples of our soft skills like active listening, etc., to interviewer? So I think that's really, that's a great question, and I think that is by practicing active listening, right? So, how can we give examples of our soft skills? It's what you're doing during that interview process, right? You're listening to the question. You're maybe asking questions about the question before you answer. Your approach. You're taking time to really think about your response. This is all really, really important, and this is something that the interview is constantly monitoring throughout that interview process. It's not all about do you know X, Y, Z in skills. It's really about how are you going to adapt to our team environment? How are you going to adapt to pressure environment? Those softer skills. What's your role within a team, right? So these, without sort of saying, okay, here's a video of me being an active listener, you are going to practice that in the interview. So I think that's probably, that's the best way of doing it, and really being cognizant of how you're doing that. Next question. So I have an overall experience of 5 years and work experience as a senior techno-functional consultant at Accenture, India. However, I came to Canada for higher studies and completed my master's. How should I proceed in the market? Great. And so how should you proceed in the market? Well, I think you should start by doing your research, right? So you've been at Accenture, you understand that consulting world. You've now got I presume you've got your master's. Start networking, attending events like this, and certainly, start applying. Your experience as well as coupled with your master's is going to help you stand out. So find the right role, make sure it's a really good fit for you, either where the company's going, some of the projects they're working on. Do as much research as you can. There's so much information out there that's available to job seekers. Make sure you've done that research and, very, very skillfully and methodically apply to the organizations where you can see yourself being for a long time and progressing your career and achieving your goals. Thank you. So I wanted to ask, what is the best way to get a resume notice past applicant tracking systems? And are cover letters outdated or still valuable when recruiting for CGI? Yeah, very good question. So cover letters, if you're asked for a cover letter and a job description, definitely provide one. If you're not necessarily asked for a cover letter and a job description, I would, it's not necessary. When a recruiter, in my experience anyway, when a recruiter looks at a cover letter is when maybe they've got questions. Maybe, I don't know, what's this break all about in their career path? Not that that's a bad thing, but, if it's not explained in the resume, I might look to the cover letter, which will give me a bit more insight. Or maybe if there's a lot of, maybe if somebody's really, switched their career path in their resume, and I don't really understand, it doesn't seem to make sense. That's when a cover letter comes in really handy. So I feel like, having something that's unique to your situation and that really, or maybe your communication skills can come out in a cover letter. But if it's not a mandatory requirement of the application process, I wouldn't necessarily advise you to provide one unless you feel like there's something specific in your resume that you want to highlight that the recruiter might not be readily apparent to the recruiter. What is the timeline we can expect on an update on our interview? Yep, that's a really great question. So, I know that there's just so much involved, right? So you'll have a pre-screen with the recruiter, and then the recruiter will get the interview panel assembled. And so, yeah, it could be 2 or 3 people often, and so they're all really busy, and so it goes like this, right? And so sometimes the timeline seems a little bit longer. Definitely, sort of 2 weeks is a good timeline, but certainly there's other mitigating factors. This is a great question to ask your recruiter because they will know. They'll know how busy, this hiring manager is, or maybe that somebody's going on vacation. So some things might be delayed. I would say within a week, sort of 10 days, you definitely should have some sort of response with regards to next steps. But certainly reaching out to recruiter at any stage of the process, and they'll be able to tell you what's going on. How much time do I spend on reviewing a new CV? That's a good question. We probably spend about 5 minutes per resume. It really depends. We're pretty good at this. We've seen a lot of resumes. But yeah, probably about 5 minutes, and then we might dig a little deeper if it's looking like it's looking like a fit for the role that we're hiring for. But my ballpark would be 5 minutes. Do you give opportunities to students who work in academic break as interns in CGI? So if I understand this correctly, okay, so the other blind to that. Yeah, we've got co-ops. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was going to say. I was like, yeah, do you mean a co-op? So yeah, absolutely. We have lots of co-op opportunities. Probably if you're asking for this cycle, a lot of those positions have been filled, but there certainly are some more opportunities available. But we do co-ops that we do summer co-ops that start in May. And then co-ops, either 4 or 8-month co-ops that start in September and January of every year in all of our offices right across Canada. I've heard that CGI uses group or case interview formats. Could you provide more information on what those might look like? Yeah, so often in a group interview format, I'll speak to first. So a group interview format, you might have, sort of the technical team, depending on what the role is, you'll have the technical team lead, and then you might have, the senior hiring manager, who in our environment is usually the director, and maybe one other member of the team. And they can just really support each other and have that consistent sort of interview panel. And so really that can be often a combination. So when we spoke earlier about, you've got your pre-screen interview with the recruiter, and then a technical interview, and then you've got your hiring manager interview. Sometimes that technical and that hiring manager interview can be one and the same. And so, it's really an opportunity for you to showcase your technical skills, but also an opportunity for you as well. The bonus of that is you get to meet more members of that team, and it will help you better inform your decision if this is the right organization that you want to join. The case interview formats is a cool question, because we actually do that for our new grad assessment days, and I was fortunate enough to be part of that this year. Really exciting. You've given a group of students some cases, and they're in real time, they solve them. It's really impressive. So very supportive, environment for those, but we can glean a lot, and for the candidates, it's an opportunity to kind of understand, okay, this is a bit of pressure, this is exciting, but also be able to see what our environment is like as well. Does CGI have recruiting initiatives other than info sessions through conferences, case competitions, other? Yeah, that's a really good question. That's probably a little bit more regional. So as I said earlier, I'm here in Western Canada. We do a lot of information sessions at most of the major universities and colleges here in Western Canada. We do sort of all sorts of job shadow events. A lot of our business units participates in these kinds of events. We do lots of career fairs with the different schools. So we're out there in a lot of different places and advertise as much as we can where we're going to be and when we're going to be there. So just kind of keep an eye. So as you mentioned, if someone changed their career, should they mention all the experience on resume or just relevant experience? Oh, she's replying. I do have a response to that though. Oh, right. Okay. Okay, so I came to Canada with more than 10 years experience in my country, but after getting second master from Concordia, I have been rejected for most of the interview due to non-related experience. How should I show that I have the ability to perform this job? Yeah, that's a good question. So kind of going back to, in that situation, I think it's important that you highlight the education and maybe the project work that you've been working on since getting your master's. If depending on how irrelevant the other work experience is, but really focusing on that project work, almost kind of like a new grad, but you're able to draw from your previous experience as well. I'm not saying you hide that experience, but you really highlight the experience that you have that's relevant to the position. How should I get? Yeah, that's a great question. So how should a candidate address a gap on their resume due to caregiving for their children? So that's a great question. And comes up all the time. I think it's important. I have no problems with putting right in there. 7-year gap due to rearing children. Certainly, and something that you might want to put in that. This is a good cover letter situation that we spoke about earlier. So great opportunity for you to kind of highlight that. Here at CGI, that is not an issue. We support. We're a very diverse and inclusive organization. We definitely support that, and think there's having a career gap. It is something that we can work with, and I think being honest and transparent about that, and how you work to sort of stay relevant in your technology, or you stay networking, whatever the case may be, highlighting that. So still getting, you might not have been in a traditional workplace for that number of years, but that ability to highlight how you have, stayed active, stayed relevant, keep that network going. If you are in that situation currently, if it's past tense, just focus on things like this and networking and being as proactive in your approach as possible. But this is a great example for a cover letter. Let's see. Sorry, make sure I'm not answering ones that already been answered. There we are. Great, I think I've answered them all. Have I missed anything, team? Very good. Okay, great. So yeah, I want to make sure that I don't miss any questions. Sorry for the delay here. Yeah, I think we've answered everything. So thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate your time today. I hope you gleaned some useful information from this. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Very happy to follow up, and if there are any questions that we didn't get to, very happy to connect with you. So thank you, everyone, and hope you're able to attend some future Career Lab presentations. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.